The word for you today is Tuesday, December the 10th. Hope you're enjoying this devotional. It's the word for you today. These folks do a really good job of putting that together. Today, the lesson is about the difference between Abraham and Peter. Never really thought about that, but it was a good study. Matthew chapter 14, verse 30. Let's talk about Peter. It says, "But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, 'Lord, save me.'" Well, you remember what this is about. Peter and the disciples were in the boat. Jesus had just finished feeding the 5,000, sent the disciples, Peter and the other disciples, across the lake in the boat, and then he dismissed the people, and he went and spent some time with his Father in prayer, and then he came walking across the water to join the disciples. It was late at night. It was dark, it was stormy. It was a scary time, and here comes this ghost, it looked like, walking across the water. The disciples were afraid. Peter said, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you." Jesus said, "Come." Peter stepped out of the boat and walking in. Peter was doing what no man had ever done before other than Jesus. Then he realized that he was doing what no man had ever done before, and he began to sink because he took his eyes off of Jesus. He realized he did not have the ability to do it. He took his eyes off of Jesus and he began to sink. We tend to give Peter a bad rap a lot of times. See, Peter was the only one that got out of the boat. The others stayed in the boat. Okay, so he took his eyes off of Jesus and sank, but at least he was in the position to do that. So let's take a quick look at Abraham and Peter and their faith. Somebody once said that there are 3 ways to look. If you want to be wretched, look within. If you want to be distracted, look around. And if you want to have peace, look up. Abraham did that. Abraham did that a lot. In Psalm chapter 50, verse 15, Psalmist says, "Call on me in the day of trouble." This is God speaking. "Call on me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you will honor me." Remember what Peter said when he was sinking? "Lord, save me." Abraham. Let's take a look at Abraham and his faith. He would take God at his word, and he simply obeyed him. Here's some of the incidences. Abraham left home and went where God told him to go. He'd never been there before. It's safe to stay at home, but he went where God told him to go. He had no idea where that would be. He took God at his word and he just went and did it. Also, Abraham was circumcised with the rest of his male family members. Wow, now that took some doing. Wonder how he convinced the other guys to do that. I don't know. But he took God at his word. Why should we do this? He took God at his word and he did it. And then just one other thing, he was willing to offer his only son Isaac as a sacrifice to God. Didn't make sense, didn't sound like something God would say, but he began going direction where God told him to go, and he was just going to be willing to do whatever God told him to do. God never intended for him to offer his son as a sacrifice. Matter of fact, God provided the sacrifice. But it was done so that Abraham could see that he would withhold nothing from God, not even his own son. Well, Peter had faith also. But his faith sometimes were strengthened in times of what we might call failure, like when he sank in the water. We might say he failed in that, but he got out of the boat. He tried. Then there was a time in the garden when the soldiers came to arrest Jesus, and Peter took the sword and he cut off the ear of the high priest's servant. Again, Peter was the only one fighting for Jesus. Now Jesus said, "Peter, put your sword away." And he healed the man's ear. This is not what I have in mind. But Peter was willing to do that. And then Peter told Jesus that he would never leave him, he would never forsake him. Yet that night he denied him 3 times. But again, Peter was the only one in the position. All the others had left. Peter was there. He was there with Jesus, or near Jesus. So let me ask you, is your faith more like Abraham's or Peter's? Abraham, he took God at his word and he did it. Wasn't always pretty, but he did it. Peter did his best to serve God, to serve Jesus. Sometimes he had more confidence in himself than he did in God's ability to use him. Have you tried and tried and tried to serve God? It just seems like things, like Peter, you sink, you create a mess, you promise something that you can't keep. You know what? Still faith. Still faith. The difference between Abraham and Peter, Abraham took God at his word and he just kept going. Peter took God at his word and sometimes he failed. It's really not our success or our failure. It's our faith in God that gets us through. Oswald Chambers makes a really, to me, incredible statement. He says, faith for my deliverance is not faith in God. Faith means whether I am delivered or not, I will stick to my belief that God is love. There are some things only learned in a fiery furnace. What is Oswald Chambers saying? Just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They said, "Oh, king, we're not going to worship your idol." King says, "Well, I'm going to throw you in that fiery furnace." "Oh, king, you can do that. And our God can save us. But king, even if our God doesn't save us, we're still not going to worship your idol." And that's what faith is. Faith is knowing that God can do what God had said he would do. And sometimes his deliverance comes in ways that we don't expect. Maybe in a way that, other than a way that we would like. Faith is just simply trusting God to be God. Difference between Abraham and Peter, they both had faith. One had a tougher time than the other one. How about you? How is your faith in God? Have a good day.